Hello, everyone. I'd like to start by thanking you for your flexibility. We are adjusting for a little bit for time, and we'll try to end a little bit early also, so you can get kind of back on schedule. But thank you very much for your patience in starting this panel. So this is the session on road safety as occupational safety, and we're very pleased to have you all here. We may have some more coming, so I apologize for any disturbance. My name is Jeff Michael. I am with Johns Hopkins University, and I am very pleased and honored to be working with the Swedish government on an academic expert group that produced the report that you may be sitting on, to inform the outcome of this conference. So the academic expert group met over the summer and autumn and produced this report with a set of recommendations that we hope will be considered by the conference. And really this session is focusing on the central recommendation, which involves occupational health and safety and road safety. So as we begin, I will introduce our panelists, but just to begin, I want to just reflect for 1 minute on the work that we all do to advance road safety worldwide. I think all of us in this room have this mission, and we knew it would be hard. But we have faith in our methods, we have faith in our science and in our prevention tools, and in our work with governments, with lead agencies, and also with non-government organizations and youth groups and other groups. we have faith in our tools and in the groups we work with that we're moving ahead. And indeed, we are moving ahead. As Dr. Etienne Krug mentioned from the World Health Organization yesterday, there are, I think, 45 countries that have reduced fatalities by more than 30%. 10 countries have reduced fatalities by more than 50%. So we're making real progress. We obviously have much further to go, but I have complete faith that we will get there because I know many people in this room, and I know you won't give up until we get there. So we will arrive at success. The academic expert group is equally committed, and we asked the question, what if there was an additional tool we could use? What if there was an additional way that we could use our prevention, not require new laws, and a way that could have global outreach? And that is the message in this report that we hope you'll read and that we're going to talk to you about this morning and hopefully have a discussion with you about. But we are proposing that road safety and we believe that the success that has happened in the workplace can be carried to the road because the laws cover both the workplace and the road. And so this morning we are going to have a short presentation about the content of the report, and then we're going to ask a group of esteemed panelists. These are very important people representing sectors that can affect the implementation of this idea. We're going to ask them for a quick reaction, maybe 5 minutes each, reaction to the content of the report. And then we would like to have some discussion with you. We're hoping that some of you are enthusiastic, and frankly, we're hoping that some of you are skeptical, so we can talk about how we think it can work and how we can use your help in making it work. So that is, that's our plan, and let me start by introducing the panel, and then I'll introduce our first speaker. And we have a special speaker at the end who will summarize, a special high-level speaker who I'll introduce after I introduce the panel. So we have, we thought about the types of people, the types of societal sectors that would be needed to implement this idea. And we have people representing each administration. Mr. Meyer-Rana is the Director General of the Swedish Transport Administration, the lead agency in Sweden, and not just a lead agency, but of course the lead agency that has been one of the leaders in road safety for many decades. Mr. Meyer-Rana has a background also in business, I think that will be quite relevant here with large employer Scania, or Scandinavian Airways, with I think maybe more than 10,000 employees there. So I think that will also be relevant. We have a large business with Halsum, a Swiss multinational firm. We have Astrid Vanderbert, who has held most positions, I think, in Halsum, from truck driver herself to now head of road safety for all of Halsum. And they've been extraordinarily successful under Astrid's leadership. They have reduced at-fault road safety fatalities by 95% since 2017. Do I have that right? That's very, very impressive. From civil society, we have Dr. Tariq Assad from our host country of Morocco. Dr. Assad is president of Preventica Morocco, a public service organization that supports occupational health and safety across the country. And indeed, that is the background of Dr. Assad. He is an occupational medicine physician, also a lawyer, and was in charge of occupational safety for the railway system across Morocco. From the vehicle sector, we have three groups. I'll start with Jenny Edvardsen from Scania. And Jenny is Sustainable Transport and Business Manager. Scania is, of course, truck manufacturer, global transport solution provider, nearly 60,000 employees in, I think, more than 100 countries. So very relevant to the topic that we were addressing. Alejandro Ferris is at the end there. Alejandro is Secretary General of Latin NCAP, so the choice of the safest work vehicle, obviously very relevant here. Not only head of Latin NCAP, but also he is Secretary General and Vice President of Technological Affairs for Global NCAP, in which he works with Africa NCAP and India NCAP as well. And we have Dr. Trent Victor from Waymo, the advanced technology mobility firm. And Trent Victor is Director of Safety Research and Best Practices at Waymo currently, formerly with Volvo Cars and formerly with Volvo Trucks also, I believe. So, so we have, I think, comprehensive group of the highest level people to get an immediate reaction to this idea that will be presented by our first speaker, which is Maria Kraft. Maria is a member of the academic expert group, as is Alejandro, as are a few people in the audience who I'll introduce in a few minutes. But Maria is Director of Traffic Safety and Sustainability at the Swedish Transport Administration, where she's been for about 10 years, and prior to that, Director of Safety Research at Folksam Insurance in Sweden. And so I'll introduce our closing speaker now and reintroduce him later. We have Dr. Johan Davidsson, who is State Secretary for the Minister of Infrastructure and Housing in Sweden. So he is a politically appointed leader in Sweden with broad responsibility for planning and coordination at the ministry. So he will, he has a background as an economist, and so I think that makes his comments quite relevant here. So he will summarize at the end of the session. We'll save 5 minutes for him to give us his closing thoughts on the direction forward from this point. So I will now ask Maria to provide her quick overview of the content of our report here.
Thank you, Jeff.
Maria, I'm sorry. May I ask the organizer, would it be possible to keep the door open? Because I think we will lack oxygen. Is it possible? Or if we can force the ventilation or something?
Yeah, more oxygen would be good.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much, and nice to be here, and I'm glad that we still have some oxygen. Last Minister Conference, road safety was for the first time integrated with the sustainability, with the SDGs goals. And that gave us a new platform. And what we said that by seeing road safety as a sustainability issue, then it was a natural thing, a thought to say that organizations should report their road safety footprint when they're doing their sustainability reporting in the same way as they do for what is called the carbon footprints. So that's the start. now that we know much more how widespread fatal crashes are in private and public organizations, the question is, why aren't preventive road safety measures, as the employer can take, something that we have treated as a mandatory actions? So, maybe you heard the numbers now, but globally it's important to know that 400,000 road fatalities occur in organizations' supply chain every year. And out of them, 100,000 are employees and 300,000 are third parties. And also an important number to remember is that there are road fatalities is the leading cause of accidental occupational health. It's number one. There actually occur other common health aspects that leads to fatalities, but they are not accidents. So the question is, why aren't road safety measures a natural part of workplaces' safety work? And to answer that and to find out, Sweden has commissioned an international group of experts to better understand employees' responsibility for road safety. And that's why we're here. So they had to find out what's the employer's responsibility for road safety. And if we look into the law of occupational safety and health, in most countries you have a law like this. It could differ somewhat, but very much the general content is that the employer should prevent ill health and accidents at work and create a good work environment. The employer has the ultimate responsibility for the work environment and should lead the work. So it says that the law means that the organization is responsible for prevention in their sphere of influence. The law does not say, it doesn't differentiate responsibility if the injury occurs within the facility or outside on the road. You have the responsibility in both ways. There's no borderline in the gate, by the gate. So that is also important to know. So we have a safety management system called ISO 45001 that support the employer to follow the law. And for instance, it says that the management shall establish, implement, and maintain a policy that includes a commitment to provide safe and healthy working conditions. The management should provide a framework, include a commitment to fulfill legal requirements, include a commitment to eliminate hazards and reduce risks. This is the third most common used standard, and I thought there was like around 500,000 companies, but I heard by Dan earlier today that it's like nearly 400,000 companies. But it's huge amount of. There are very many companies that are using this. What is also included in this measurement in this one is that you have a responsibility for third party. And it says that organization is responsible for occupational health and safety of workers and others who can be affected by its activities, which means that other road users that are involved in a crash also are treated as the third party. They had that position. So it's not only the employees, it's also the third parties. So the responsibility for severe consequences is not just about individuals' responsibility, but also a shift towards organizational responsibility and preventive measures. So we need a stronger system-oriented view and seeing risk prevention as a key action. And this is also the ideas and the strategies that you will find in Vision Zero approach, in the Safe System approach, and also in the Occupational Safety and Health Law. So what is in place and what is needed to change the conditions? We have the law there in most countries, and the management systems exist, but we need to clarify how road safety, that we should say that road safety is also part of workplace safety. There exist tools to measure the road safety footprints already, and other methods are coming up, but that's also an important tool that we have. So the question is, who should request the measurement? And the financial sector needs data and commitments, and the occupational health and safety authorities need reporting from employers, and it's also needed data for business-to-business relations. And of course also the procurement to business relations. And what we also would like to have, that the vehicle industry really could support high levels of organizational safety. At least equipping vehicles with technology to ensure that they comply with speed limits, seatbelt use, and impaired driving laws. Procurement is a powerful instrument, and a huge money is spent on private and public procurement every year. So organizations can have a tremendous influence on society through their spending on the goods and the services necessary for their functions. Here's some data showing the benefits from using available technologies to follow the traffic rules in work-related trips. So, for example, by reducing the average speed between 5 and 8 kilometers per hour, the estimated effect would be around 130 and 190,000 lives yearly. And if we can ensure that all the employees were wearing the seatbelt, we are talking about 40,000 lives that could be saved. So a conservative estimate is that available prevention measures could reduce the number of work-related road deaths by at least 50%. In the Marrakesh Declaration, there are 4 bullets about workplace safety with a focus on road safety, and I won't go through them, but the overall message is that the legal requirement gives us a mandate to act more proactive. And governments, the private sector, and financial players can, with their influence as leaders and role models, pave a new path that can truly save lives on the road. So in this report, you will find, that was prepared for this minister conference, you will find more about the background and also about recommendations, how to move forward, how we can internalize road safety in organizations. And as Jeff mentioned, there are some of the writers in this room, and Jeff is also one of the main authors. I would like to add that as well. And with that, Jeff, please.
Thank you, Maria. Let me introduce the other members who are with us, because I think we're going to have a bit of a discussion, and I invite them to participate in the discussion as well. So, I see Anders Lee in the back here, and member of the academic working group. Fred Wegman is with us. Thank you, Fred. I mentioned Alejandro and Maria, of course, and I think Eva has stepped out. Probably adjusting a temperature. It feels better a little bit. Oh, Eva, I'm sorry, Eva. I'm sorry. But the temperature feels better a little bit. Yeah. Thank you. And I think that's everybody in the room. I hope I didn't miss anyone. So very good. So now we're going to ask for reaction from the panel members. And please listen to the reaction and have Maria's presentation in mind and formulate some questions that, because then we can have some discussion, and then we'll, as I mentioned, wrap up with some insight from Mr. Davidson. So let me start, maybe in the same order. I'll start with Roberto to comment from sort of the government perspective on this idea.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and thank you, Maria. And I would also like to express a big thank to the group behind this work. And I recommend you all to take part of this and read it. It's not the thickest book, but it has a very important and good content. So on your way before go to sleep tonight, or maybe on your way home from here, take the chance to read it. I'd like to comment actually what was said on the last slide. Internalizing road safety into workplace safety is actually a significant action to move forward in the Vision Zero work, and I see the connection in doing that. A robust and safe road transport system relies on many system owners taking their responsibility. One example, it's not enough for authorities like us to improve infrastructure or enhance regulations and enforcement to take the improvements further or to make further progress. We need to actually to listen to those who use the road system, and we need to include them into a greater extent, and that's why organizations, journey and transportation have a very significant impact. I also believe that to make progress more quickly, it's necessary to find measures that are feasible to implement worldwide and not just in high-income countries. And from a global perspective, applying workplace standards to reduce traffic deaths can truly be a game changer. And as we could see the figures and the potential in such actions, I think it's really worth going for. Multinational companies, as we know, often start their value chain in low and middle income countries, and these corporations are able to fund safe operations, and by doing so they can have a significant impact on improving road safety in low and medium economies. Our work to promote road safety as a workplace issue is facilitated by our role as a lead agency in Sweden, and we are a big spender when it comes to procurement, and so we do have a great impact, and we can invite and engage in a dialogue with relevant authorities and stakeholders. For example, we collaborate with the Swedish Work Environment Authority and we are very engaged in the dialogue with major transport buyers about road safety procurement requirements. So there are some of my reflections I would do on the work that you have performed.
Thank you, Roberto. One further, excuse me, one further question for you about collaboration. I think there's an implication here that road safety authority and labor authorities must work together. And is that new for your lead agency, or is that something that a relationship you already have?
I would say we have a very close relationship, and it's not new. We can emphasize it even further, but I come back to actually our position as a leading agency, and the fact that we are one of Sweden's maybe biggest buyers of activities connected to infrastructure, and that gives us a very big potential to have an influence when it comes to procurement. And of course, for many years we've actually required alcohol locks, we've required other measures in order to be able to be a supplier to the Swedish Transport Administration or our collaborators. But we also strengthen this further where contracted transport services need to ensure speed compliance, for example. And I think that's actually our responsibility to make that kind of request when we engage suppliers.
Yeah, very good, thank you. Astrid, I wonder if you could comment on the implications for a very large multinational corporation. Yours is huge, and you have many thousands, I think 50,000 truck drivers. So what does it mean at that scale?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank the group for producing this report. These recommendations are very welcome from our perspective, because it reflects in large measure what we feel large organizations should do to lead the way when it comes to road safety. So we very much see road safety as an opportunity for an organization. And what makes organizations act? First of all, there could be a legal restraint or constraint, a requirement to do things, but that legal requirement has been in place for many years now. And so it feels like it's a little bit weak. Then the second consideration could be that there's a moral obligation. You know, you want to do the right thing, not just for your own people, but the people that you affect as well. And clearly that is very strong within our organization. But I think what will resonate with a lot of organizations is if road safety could be seen as a revenue stream. Certainly, I can see that good road safety practices make a lot of financial business sense. So I can see that following on from the report that was produced here, that companies can see that the cost of accidents is unacceptable. It's a waste of money. It is much cheaper to invest in road safety, save lives, do the right thing, rather than have to investigate incidents. For example, the time spent with vehicle downtime, and let alone the reputational damage that is being done by these crashes. For me, it'd be quite interesting if some larger organization than ourselves would do maybe a study to see, you know, what is the correlation between fatal road crashes and the share price, for example. So I think from an organizational perspective, for us, it makes absolute business sense to have a very strong road safety program in place. And procurement has played a huge role in getting that program off the ground. We have a number of we have a very simple road safety program. We have a number of requirements which we request of all of our transportation providers to implement. We monitor them, we make sure that their driving performance gets better, and this is what's created those results. But without implementing the road safety program, unfortunately, that company would not be working for us. Yeah. And those are my reflections.
Very good. Thank you. And do you feel like you are already there with your operations? That is, you are taking the same level of care on the road with your employees as they would at the plant or at the workspace. So do you feel that there would be additional investment needed to bring them up to that level, or do you feel like you're already close to that?
Well, at Holcim, there is no difference between the two, whether you are working on-site or whether you're working off-site. However, the difficulty, of course, is the fact that most of those drivers work for third-party logistics firms. And this is the bit where we're now focusing on to bring those transport company owners on board with our road safety program. The drivers are on board generally. Now we just need to have the business owners on board.
Okay, very good. Dr. Assad, I turn to you from civil society. For this to happen, for example, here in Morocco, many small businesses would be affected, and I assume that they would need some support and guidance. Do you see a role for civil society to fill in from that direction to support adoption of this concept by all businesses?
Yes, thank you. In the beginning, I want to welcome you in Morocco for everybody. And I know that you make a lot of travel to come here. And also, I want to thank Swedish government for his commitment for all the action. As I say, I have training for 2006 from Association of Swedish. And my son spent last year in Swedish also. For civil association, there are a lot of civil associations in Morocco which they are working in the road safety. And also the NACSA is doing the best thing for do that. But if I take the recommendation which in this document, I want to thank you. You send us the link, I think, in the beginning also we learn it. And I saw a lot of things to do. But the difficult, I think, that the approach, how we can make them on the floor, make them on the small companies, as you said. And also, I saw you spoke about ISO standard. There's also in page 43, I think, they are speaking about ISO 13991. So it's speaking about road safety. And a lot of people don't know that the first norm, that's the first standard, which structured with the HLS, high-level structure, before 9001 and 14,000. This action, I think that we must make together the two standards, but to have reflection to make like label with basic requirements which can be approached and made by all the companies, the small companies. So, and we introduce the road safety as a subject from health and safety in the companies and all the fields. When we are transporter, so we are the labor and the worker which we can take care for them, but also, as you said, it's interesting, we must take for the impact which we can do for the civil and the population. Look, I think that the first thing is we need to have a day after this meeting and to think together how we can make around the table or the level of responsibility, the political level for responsibility, but also the structure which have responsibility for health and safety, like ENCVT, NARSA, also EMANOR. We make them all the table, and the technical actor which can help us to make requirement and guidance for this.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. Very good idea. Hopefully we'll come back to that idea later in the session. Jenny, maybe we'll move to you. This idea implies that road safety be held to the same standards as the worksite safety, which would mean the highest level of safety in work vehicles. Is that feasible at a practical level from your viewpoint, as from Scania viewpoint?
Which market are we talking about then?
Pardon me?
Well, it depends on the market,
Okay.
I would say, because unfortunately, if you go to some markets, there might not be markings like the road conditions that cannot allow, or that we need also the regulation behind us. So there might be, for instance, we need the width regulation to accept that there are sensors sticking out a little bit. So it depends on the market a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I should say that we always have the same standard on the cab everywhere. We never compromise on that. So It's very important to have the same, and we want that. There's a good June regulation that should be implemented and harmonized everywhere if it's possible. So, yes.
Yeah, good, sounds good.
Should I also comment now?
Yes, please.
Very good. Thank you so much for the great job and the great report. Very good. And just to comment a little bit to Maria, when it comes to laws and regulations and standards, there are a lot already in place. And also good tools like the FIA Road Safety Index to really measure and follow up. But of course, and I would like to refer a little bit back to Astrid, I think it's very good to understand that there's a good business case here as well. So it's not just that we have to work with this, it's really good for the bottom line. And going to the transport business, it's in all markets very hard to actually attract skilled drivers. And working with road safety means to really work with the drivers. So working conditions, for instance, and to follow up. We don't follow up because we want to punish them. No, it's to educate and learn and to prove. Maybe it's, for instance, if you have driving in resting times and the driver don't follow them, it could be that the schedule is off. And then, of course, it comes a little bit back to us as transport buyers as well. We must be more flexible, and we can't push for these very, very fast deliveries just in time all the time. So we have a big work there. Maybe I should say something about the vehicle technology as well.
That'd be good.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of things, and there are a lot of services to start with as well. To start with, a driver needs to be secure and to stay in a safe place also when they spend the night there. So starting well-rested, in good shape, and then going to the actual driving part. Well, they need to have a maintained vehicle, and they need to check that, and we have services to check that it's in good condition. And going to start the vehicle, I think especially when driving big vehicles, you have a big responsibility. And we need to make sure that they are sober. I think that's really important that more alcohol locks are being used, as for one thing. I don't know if you know, but in General Safety Regulation that came into force in July, it's actually prepared for the vehicles to use alcohol locks. So that could be implemented. And going to the actual driving then, our vehicles are made for everyone to drive. So good vision, comfortable journey. And, there are technologies to support the driver, for instance, with the vision and the indirect vision to support, but we need to understand that the driver is responsibility still. And so the driver needs to understand the safety features and to use them, because if they turn them off, we haven't won anything. So we need to have that driver and technology working hand in hand.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Very good. That's very, very insightful. That's good.
Okay.
Can we move on to Alejandro from a consumer information point of view? What do you feel the implications of this for the new car assessment program might be?
Good, thank you. At first, I would like to congratulate and thank very much the Swedish Ministry of Transport for leading this, also Jeff for the work, and I'm honored to be part of the group as well. From the consumer perspective, I mean, what we are doing is rating vehicle safety in order to inform consumers, and we do it in an independent way, and through that information, consumers make a choice for safer vehicles, and that also forces and pushes the industry to improve cars beyond regulation. Now, one of the best partners we had for shifting changes in emerging markets, which regulations are really, really falling behind what it's in the mature economies, are the fleet managers, companies that implement a higher safety standard for their own fleet. And in many ways, and we can easily say in the last year at least, more than 70% of the cars we tested in Latin America were actually explained because companies are putting pressure on the car manufacturers because they want to see how those cars perform in safety. That's a step before moving into a 5-star fleet criteria. Now this report, in our perspective, it brings an absolute essential tool for those companies to develop and build up the whole story around why those companies are implementing those changes. The occupational safety is a key thing, and to explain it and give tools to those companies to implement those policies internally, it's essential, it's very important. And in the report is reflected all that. But from our perspective, there are two ends that are being tackled here. One end is the change in the culture of safety in emerging markets. That's extremely relevant. And from the other perspective, it also forces companies like car manufacturers, which are the ones that we're criticizing most of the times, to change also the policies internally. We are seeing car manufacturers that do not have a safe environment, or let's say from the occupational perspective, a safe environment policy in some markets, in some emerging markets. And we understand that this is once again going to ring the bell from their side to review some of these policies internally, not just to produce cars on the highest safety standards or aiming to the highest safety standards and offering vehicles to the industry and to the other private sector users with a better safety performance, but also is going to make them review internally their own policies towards their employees. And directly and indirectly is going to create on both ends a positive effect. So that's actually, we are very happy. We are pleased to have this report available. And we understand it's going to bring a tremendous good impact, especially from our perspective in emerging economies. Workers' union, they do need these kind of tools, and also the occupational safety departments in many companies in Latin America, in India, they do need to have a baseline to develop the occupational safety policies in a more developed way and faster than what they have been doing so far until now.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Alhamdulillah. And Trent, back to you. I imagine you have quite an interesting perspective as the constructor of eventually self-driving vehicles, but between here and there, there's maybe a long space, and do you see a role for advanced technology in optimizing safety for vehicles at work?
Thank you. Yes, so I think I need to give a little context. I work for Waymo, which is Google's self-driving car company. We have last year completed 4 million passenger trips, paid passenger trips in the United States. So it is a reality. It's a mature market in Phoenix, San Francisco, LA. We're expanding in Austin, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., we're going to be in Tokyo. So this is Tokyo is the main international market we're moving to. So anyways, I just wanted to give that as a background because we are, from my perspective, we're already way into the future. And I think this is an interesting perspective where a lot of people maybe don't realize that that's what's going on. So technology goes faster than people maybe are aware of. I think that's one of the key things here. And then the thing about our operations is that it is an operation. So it's in-service operational safety is part of what we are offering. We're offering rides. We have personal security events that happen around the vehicles. There's all these operations that are needed. So as a new industry, we need to prove ourselves. We are under a lot of scrutiny. We have been developing a safety framework. And in the safety framework, we have the hardware, we have the behavior of the vehicle, but we also have operations. And in part of that operations, we've developed a lot of management systems, so fleet monitoring, and monitoring live of our vehicles is enabled because of the fact that we're a technology company. So we see what's happening in the field. So fleet monitoring is really important for us. And I'd like to say that what gets measured gets managed. So this is one of the things that technology can do, is it can give you the measurements. So you can manage fleets. So I think that we're in a moment right now where it's hard for people to realize that we're already in the future. We have a 92% reduction of bodily injury claims, third-party claims, 92% reduction in 25 million miles. And we have a, checks notes, 78% reduction of any injury and 81% reduction of airbag collisions. So we're at that point right now where there's this what I'm calling a safety paradox. And the paradox is something that is originally seen negatively, but later becomes just an obvious thing. And I think a very good example of that is the seatbelt, is the way people were skeptical to the seatbelt. And I think this is one of those moments. This right here is that moment where this is obvious. And we just need to make it into something that becomes a natural part of operations safety.
Very good. So the Waymo workplace is your self-driving vehicle.
So part of the development is that we have safety drivers that in the development process. So in that process, we've had to implement a lot of things, monitoring. For example, fatigue risk management has been like a major effort that we've had to implement.
Oh, very good. Okay. Well, let's. I'd like to engage the audience here, and so hopefully, as I mentioned, some of you are enthusiastic about this and others are skeptical, so we can have a good discussion. So I know that perhaps one or two of our academic expert group members might also have a comment. So do I have any volunteers with a comment? And that's very good. How about you? We have a microphone, I think. That.
Do I need a microphone? I have a microphone. My name's Adrian Walsh. A number of you know who I am and where I come from. But I've been involved in the UN Road Safety Collaboration since its inception.
Oh, very good.
And one of the things we've been pushing all the way through is this subject. And the push was uphill. So thank you very much indeed, the academics. And it's the academics who brought it into the public domain, not business and industry. Business and industry has been working away. Many examples of companies doing it really well, but they hide. They don't tell others what they're doing because it's not seen as a success story. It's seen as defensive. It's about things like brand reputation. Now, we ran a program in Britain, we still run it, called Driving for Better Business. It engages companies that employ 5 million drivers. It's beginning to move. Why it's moved is that things are being measured, as is mentioned. The other thing is the realization that it's about people, not about failure, not about accidents, not about death and injury, but it's by success, delivering on time, delivering to satisfied customers. And the story I'll tell now, I think, emphasizes the importance of this monitoring you mentioned. The company I feature is Tarmac. And Tarmac use a monitoring system provided by Michelin. Doesn't surprise many of you. And telematics is critical to their whole delivery operation. At the meeting the other day, the discussion was how it's done and so on. And the choice words were, we're not really interested in where our drivers are. We're interested in how they are. That is the big shift.
Very good. Thank you. First, thank you for pointing out that academics provided something useful here. That's often a question. But I ask the panel if they have any response to points just raised. Yes, Astrid.
Yes, Adrian. Yes, that's it. It's working now. Adrian, thank you so much for that. I slightly disagree with you in terms of companies hiding. And yes, sure, it's a reputational thing, but I think it's a positive reputational thing. For me, certainly road safety is a topic that I want to shout about, in the sense that look at what we're doing and look at what more we are planning on doing. And I think if more companies realize that it's such a positive way of engaging with workers and with contractors, then maybe we could remove some of that stigma that you've encountered.
Thank you, Astrid. And Roberto?
Just a small remark. When I look into this work, recommendation number 1 topic, road safety in workplace safety regulations and practices. It's formulated, private and public organizations should include specific attention to road safety in the systematic management. And I can hear that you already do that. So I think that maybe it is included, and have the business that is actually already taken that step tell the rest of the business that it's not anymore should, it is shall. Yeah. So I think it could be even stronger formulated from the academic.
Yeah. Thank you. Very good. Trent?
Yeah, I could just add that I think that there's something to be said about making it easy for people to adopt too. So developing it as a system that is easy to cut and paste into different companies. So you don't have to develop it yourself. I think I just wanted to see it as a product and a usability aspect to that product.
Wow. Okay, very good. And we had a question from the front row here.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sam Clark. I work for an NGO called TransAid. We've been working in this sphere for over 25 years. Really, our emphasis is on supporting the transport industry to equip their drivers with the skills that they need to come home safe at the end of every day. So passengers, freight, all that type of thing. I think what we see in terms of the biggest challenges, we see the bigger multinationals coming in to sub-Saharan Africa with their standards, which are generally higher than the standards in the countries within which they operate. And that generally presents a challenge to them in terms of sourcing appropriately skilled drivers, because those drivers are only as good as the standards which exist within their countries, which in many countries it is inadequate. And therefore they hire drivers from the Middle East, from South Africa, from Europe. And it's a missed opportunity in terms of countries like Uganda, where things are growing incredibly quickly at the moment from a road transport point of view. So I would just like to say, NGOs, we need more support for those sorts of initiatives. There's a real reluctance from donors, I think, to support driver training initiatives. I think possibly a lack of evidence in terms of its long-term impact on numbers of lives saved on the roads. But I'm thankful to many of the multinationals that lead the way, but worried at the same time for these smaller operators, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, which are challenged by the existing standards, let alone the standards which should be in place.
Yes, very, very good. Sort of an unanticipated consequence. Astrid, do you have experience with this need for training at the local level?
Yes, so driver training is one of the pillars of our road safety program, and I must confess to some prior involvement with Sam. I'm one of the trustees of the board of TransAid as well, and but despite that, and without knowing it, we had a long-term collaboration prior to that, in a sense that a lot of the drivers trained through Safeway Rightway, for example, are being engaged with the intermediary of Holcim with a lot of our transporters. For example, one of the initiatives that we launched within Holcim is a program called Women on Wheels, and we're encouraging the involvement of women in to become drivers. And a lot of the drivers trained, particularly in Uganda and in Kenya, have joined our transporters. And clearly that is making a huge difference in the livelihoods of those women's families.
Oh,
and we feel there should be a lot more involvement of women in the road transport industry, because our figures indicate that women truck drivers are safer truck drivers. And for example, in a country like Uganda, they were so significantly safer than the male counterparts that it had a knock-on effect that the men also upped their game and their safety scores increased.
Ah, very good, very good. Go ahead, Jenny.
Great, Astrid. I also wanted to highlight the women here, because often you hear also when we talk about professional drivers, they're called he, and we only hear they're referred to as only men. And just starting there to include that it could be a she as well. But we also had these programs, for instance, in Argentina. I just want to highlight that they made really well, but they tend to quit the job because it's a very tough environment out there. It's about also the security, staying on the road, but also the kind of culture in the business that is a bit tough. So we need to also work with the culture, so at the workplaces for the female drivers. So, but we need them. It's a big lack of drivers, and as you say, often very good results when it comes to the driving. Yeah.
Very good. Maybe I should ask Dr. Assad, do you see a role for civil society in providing some of this training at the local level? Is it possible that civil society could provide some of the driver training necessary?
Yes, civil society can bring a lot of things. I have some experience in the health and safety with a French company, which we develop a software which can help training by the people which don't learn, only with the audio and the video, and you can follow all the course of the training. So, and it can develop it sometimes with civil association and not with government, because as you know, sometimes we need some authorization, some finance for government structure. But when we are with social and civil association, they can do that easy and can bring some things. But in the same target, but for the tomorrow, as I said, I want, because we have a lot of recommendation, or have a discussion with a high level, but if we spend it here in this classroom, it will be forget, I'm sure. But see if some structure can help and take on this opportunity to find the way when we can work together. Everyone can do what he wants and as he wants, like his role and her place in the society.
Wonderful.
And I don't forget that I'm not speaking only for Morocco, because Morocco is taking also the other country of Africa in the same way for him.
Oh,
Thank
wonderful, wonderful. That's encouraging. And yes, another question here. I'll come to you next. Yes.
Excuse me in French, is it possible? Oui, je voudrais parler en français, rien que pour, je voudrais rebondir par rapport aux besoins de formation, non seulement des professionnels, des conducteurs professionnels, mais aussi des médecins de travail, des compagnies, parce qu'ils sont habilités à donner l'aptitude au poste, mais non pas à l'aptitude à la conduite. Il y a une réglementation que beaucoup de pays méconnaissent, en tout cas en Afrique, en matière d'aptitude à la conduite. Il y a des critères scientifiques que les médecins de travail sont mal formés et donc ne les exigent pas. Et donc, ça fait des accidents évitables. Et deuxième idée, par rapport à votre question, la part des ONG, moi, je représente une association de médecins agréés qui délivre l'aptitude médicale pour la conduite au Maroc et on fait des formations dans les compagnies, les entreprises pour attirer l'attention des médecins de travail qui ne connaissent pas ça. Et on a vu beaucoup d'impact, rien qu'avec les entreprises de cimentiers, ils arrivent, ils ont une stratégie pour le risque routier, mais nous aussi, on les a aidés, on les a accompagnés et on a contribué à la réduction des accidents ces 2 dernières années. Donc les ONG ont beaucoup de choses. En tant qu'ONG thématique, on a des propositions pour au moins que les médecins de travail des entreprises, du monde privé, sachent qu'il y a des exigences scientifiques en matière d'aptitude à la conduite. Et dernière chose, pourquoi ne pas utiliser l'intelligence artificielle pour contribuer à la réduction des pathologies, des impacts des maladies de sommeil lors de la conduite. Au moins, elle va sensibiliser le conducteur à s'arrêter et ne pas avoir un accident évitable dû au sommeil. Parce que ce sommeil, il est induit par une pathologie non diagnostiquée. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Merci. Dr. Seth, I'll ask you for your help in responding.
My colleague, because I also am physician, okay, she's speaking about physician in work. When they give the agreement for the worker to be ability to work, they forget that there are some rules which we must applicate to the conductor. So we must make training specifically for the doctors about this subject. And the second title which she spoke about, to use the intelligence artificial in the cars probably or the truck to detect sleeping apnea for some people which don't sleep, and we make some technology to help us to detect before to have the accident.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. You can keep it. And yes, how about in the back row then? Yes, you.
Good morning. My name is Pacific from Burundi, and I just want to share my experience. And I own a company dealing with road safety, and for you young people in the secondary school, we do give them some awareness during the year, then to prepare the Remembrance Day. Then they develop their poems and whatever. So now at the Remembrance Day, they come and do present. Then the classes give them notes so that then the first ones get something. Then we've been doing that from 2020. Now our aim is that those young men and women will now do awareness in primary and secondary and wherever. So for now, 5 years later, we've got the first ones are now the one who organize in other schools. Now for the trainings of drivers, we develop programs with psychologists and physicians so that they develop. Our aim is that the driver has to know himself, the way to deal with stress, with fatigue, and know how to rest, how the body functions, so that himself get aware of the dangers he can cause on the road. So now we've been doing that with many companies, and the result is very good. So this meeting was very interesting for me. I wanted to share our experience. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Good.
very much. Any comment? Yes, please.
Sorry, I do seem to have a lot to say. I wanted to come back on the training on the topic of driver training. And I do agree, the baseline absolutely has to be there. And refresher training is also a key part of our road safety program. But however, now that's in place, so now drivers know what to do. The next step for us was, do drivers do what they know they should be doing? And you know, how is that going to impact them directly? So I feel driver training is only a small part of the actual overall picture, because it's not just, okay, giving them the knowledge what to do and giving them the knowledge to make better decisions behind the wheel, but then also monitoring how those decisions were made, having that conversation, doing some coaching, performance management, and connecting that to some direct incentivization for the driver. And this, for us, has shown us some very good results, because I honestly can't remember the last time we had a road crash where the root cause was that the driver didn't know what to do. So the training is good, but then it's the behavior on top of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Understood. Yes. Very good. Yes. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Lewis from Outerleaf. And I think what we're talking about is really important and very interesting. I would actually like to bring another element of occupational safety and employer responsibility. And that is actually in those organizations that arrange transport for employees to and from work. And I have to say, I really wanted to just share something which the Outerleaf Indian organization did, which I think is really a great example of best practice. So they had the opportunity, because there are a number of coaches and minibuses which the organization uses to collect employees, bring them to work and then take them home again. There was a new contract, and the thing we specified in the new contract was 3-point seat belts in buses, which we had to actually commission ourselves because they don't exist. So, I mean, at the moment, it's sometimes a challenge getting a 2-point seat belt. Getting a 3-point one was absolutely not there. So I think that's something that, you know, when we're looking at road transport, particularly for coaches, something that, you know, we should start to be considering. But then also, what I also found, they have a whole system in place. So as our employees get on the bus, they badge in, so they know who's on the bus. Should anything ever happen, we also know who was on that particular bus, so we can actually follow that up. But also, we're very conscious about female safety. So within the buses are panic buttons. So should something untoward happen, someone can raise the alarm easily. And also, what I thought was really, really good, because the buses go around and collect people and there may be some delays or whatever, they actually have introduced an app, a bit like an Uber app, so that the female employee doesn't have to stand at the side of the road for 10 or 20 minutes waiting for the bus and potentially being at risk. They can actually look at the app, see that the bus is going to be there in a couple of minutes, and then walk out and meet the bus. And again, that's just another example of how we can take occupational safety further in terms of you know, how we transport our employees. So logistics is really great. Let's also be looking at the wider element.
Yes.
Oh, and the other thing was, of course, we do alcohol testing for the drivers. So when before they leave, they have to do an alcohol test, which is also quite important.
Okay, very good.
So I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you for that point.
Give you another avenue for consideration.
Very good point. Very good point. I'll ask Anders, one of our academic expert group members, to comment. I also want to point out we have another academic expert group member, Eric Dumba, on the back, to recognize.
Thank you, Jeff. I find this discussion extremely important and interesting because we are hovering around a field of responsibilities where you have the employer in one end, you have society in one end, and you have a lot of drivers in the third end. And the links between those partners are strange, I would say, as mainly, if you look at enforcement, it's something between society and the driver.
Yes.
and the organization, the enterprise, is never involved in that. And when we now open up for a more mature view on how society could support drivers through occupational health and safety, my main wish would be that also society could get in contact with the organizations, not only with the drivers. In the end of the day, actually fining the organization for poor performance of the drivers. That has not happened in anywhere as far as I know. But that can open up for a completely new balance between these three, and also balance where the importance of the organizations to support drivers by technologies and other means to do the right thing would be at a completely new and higher level. So considering that triangle of responsibilities and looking in that also from the enforcement point of view would be very helpful.
Yes, that's an important implication, I think, of this concept, is that the employer or the organization would be responsible for the safe operation on the road, not the driver. Yeah, it's not solely the driver. We'll have maybe just a couple more, then we'll save time for some final comments by our closing speaker. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Steve Phillips, Conference European Directors of Roads, representing road directors across Europe. And it's been a great panel, and I think there's some great interventions. And I think, looking at just in time and driver's hours and expanding that, the work of NCAP, etc. But I'm still left with, my experience is there's a big risk we are outsourcing some responsibility to the occupational health and safety agencies, who quite frankly are struggling to enforce health and safety on what is undoubtedly already a workplace. So we have to be very, very careful. And I guess that's where I go to Roberto. And Roberto knew I was going to pick on him. Because let's face it, amongst my membership, the Robertos of Europe, I can count on, not even on one hand, maybe on a couple of fingers, the agencies who are implementing, in their public procurement, some of these principles. And I guess my question is how do we actually push this? So Roberto, how can you really convince all your fellow road directors, the ones who are in some cases scared to or worried to implement these things? More so, how do we convince other government agencies? Because I look at road authorities as, if you like, as the first ones, but the second ones should be the health departments. Why are they not building into their public procurement this kind of thing? And I guess, it's how do we push this in? Because, again, not to put a downer on it, but I've sat also in many of the audiences of these where people from the industry will say, this is great, but Steve, there's too many cowboys out there, and I would put myself at a big competitive disadvantage if I didn't sink to the lowest level to win the government contract. So that's why I think public procurement has to be driving this.
Okay, very good. Roberto, do you want to defend yourself?
Well, I have a fast answer, Steve. I think that we need to take that responsibility, and I agree with you. Not all of the agencies do that. What we can do in order to contribute to that is actually to tell our story and tell what we are doing. Like I think that the private sector or the business sector could do the same. We need to let this story be more famous or more known, so that we can have a bigger movement in this area, because it's so important and it's quite evident. I know that we are in Sweden, and I think that we've come far, but we still have a potential, and we need to close a gap. So we have to look into our improvements.
Very good. And I think maybe just one more. I'm sorry to cut it off, but we want to save some time for our closing speaker. Yes, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Andres Agudelo. Sorry, no speak English.
Okay.
Hello. Hello. I'll help my friend Andres here.
Great, thank you.
So Andres works in the Colombian Institute for Work Safety and Health. So he wants to know what recommendations do you have for them for applying these best practices knowing the Latin America context, and also knowing that in Colombia, the road safety plans are obligated in the private sector as a part of the occupational health issue. So the question is how to apply all this in a Latin America context.
Oh, very good. I think Alejandra, they're asking you.
Thank you. As I said at the beginning, there are challenges we are confronting in the emerging markets. The tools are very well explained in those documents, but basically what you always need to make it happen is political will. You don't have political will, and I'm not talking about politicians, I'm talking about leadership in the private sector as well. You always need to have this initiative from the leadership to move forward. I was bringing it up to our side of the workforce, actually in vehicle safety. The Australian government many years ago said, the procurement office said, we're not going to buy cars which are less than 4 stars safety. That actually shows a direct initiative from the public sector to take the lead in this. I'm pretty sure that that minister or the person that took that decision probably paid a political cost, if you want to put it that way. But I think that in Latin America context, something you should try out is to get in touch or try to liaise with the workers' union, because at the end of it, they are the ones leveraging for their own safety to improve the safety in the work environment, in the working environment. And in our experience, at least, they leveraged much faster the changes at least in fleet safety in many places in Latin America than any other thing. Political will, unfortunately, is not very abundant, let's put it this way, and it's challenging to get certain political levels to take the risk. So I think you should liaise and try to cooperate with the workers' union to help you convince the leadership in order to take a first step into improving the safety environment, I mean the working environment from the safety perspective, from the health perspective as well. It's very much linked to the policies in most Latin American countries. We have seen in the last 10 years a wave of improvement into health, let's say work-related departments or health-related departments inside private and public sector. They have implemented new policies, not probably in the way we would like it to be seen as in the in the mature economies, but at least there was a first wave of improvement into occupational health. And vehicles, at least, I mean, when you're driving as a user or as a third party, those people are exposed. And you have to explain that the health part of the well-being and the health and safety, it doesn't just go away only in the building itself or in the work site that you have the activity. It goes actually when you're commuting from one spot to the other, when you are bringing that person outside from the work area back home. It's everywhere. So that's why I suggest to have try to liaise with the workers' union, because actually they do have a lot of leverage, political leverage, and try to find leaderships inside the private and public sector that can lead, take a first step and lead in this, take the risk. They say it as a risk. In our side, we see it as initiative and lead definitely in this change. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to say it's easy, but if you can manage to get this part of the society active, that's going to be much better.
Thank you, Alejandro, and thank you for that question. May I ask Mr. Davidson to come up and give us your closing comments, and afterwards we can thank our panel.
Thank you very much, and thank you for letting me try and summarize this important session. Not a very easy task at all, with such a distinguished panel, and also knowing that I am the only thing standing between you and lunch. So, but some short remarks or comments. The Swedish approach to road safety, the Vision Zero, really underlines that road safety is a shared responsibility between different stakeholders, including the governmental side, the civil society, the academia, and the private sector. And the private sector is a new thing that we're talking more and more about now, also in Sweden. It's a little bit new thing also in Sweden. It can be good to underline. So we have talked earlier about this triple helix. Now it's more of a quadruple helix or something. Government, civil society, private sector, and the academia. And banking on our experience and the progress that we have made in Sweden, I can really confirm that the progress would not have been possible without the strong cooperation among the various stakeholders. The session has shown how private sector can and also should take more responsibility and contribute to saving lives on our roads. And in the end, the companies will then also be more competitive if they do so. I really agree on those remarks earlier. So the revenue stream as well can also be improved. That's important to have in mind here when we talk about more of responsibilities towards the companies. Another conclusion is that the potential impact of incorporating the road safety into the occupational health and safety policies of large corporations is that they can be larger, the possible impact can be larger of that of what many governmental policies can achieve. So it's really important to underline this new dimension of working with road safety. Supply chains associated with multinational corporations account for over 80% of the global trade and employ 1 of 5 workers. So if all involved in this chain of activities, which also initiate transport, if all they play their part, then we can really, the entire chain can really be positively affected and we can surely save lives. The session also specifically demonstrated the employer's responsibility for working for the working environment, and not only as we have done for a long time in the offices, but also inside and outside the gates, the whole part of the working time and scheme for the employers. And that, I really believe, also has a tremendous potential to prevent crashes and serious injuries in traffic. Smaller companies, however, I agree on that, may need more basic checklists and to quickly be able to take part of this important work. So every company can't work at the same level and with the same tools. So I think we have to address the specific challenges that the smaller companies also can have. The session furthermore reminded us that we already have laws and regulations and standards in place that make millions of employers actually allies in our important work to reduce fatalities in our roads. Integrating road safety as a part of occupational health and safety work adds this extra dimension by involving new stakeholders in road safety efforts. However, it's essential to also maintain the holistic approach to road safety, which includes improvements in road and vehicle design, in public procurement, as well, if needed, when it comes to enhanced laws and law enforcement. But I would also say that we know a lot about the tools and measurements that can be taken. We know a lot already. So I think Jean Todt earlier this day was very on point when he said, or in some way summarized, it's now about filling the gap between what we know and what we do. So don't sit on the information. You have the information on in place here. So don't sit on the information. Use it. And if you think that Sweden can be of some help in your work, in your countries, we will be happy and glad to try and help, and primarily then through the Vision Zero Academy, managed through the Swedish Transport Administration. Thank you very much.
Yes, indeed, Sweden has been a very big help. Can we please thank our panelists? This has been a very nice session. And And finally, thank you to the audience. This has been a very nice interaction, so thank you for being forthcoming in your comments.
And for you. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm very happy to meet you in this.
Oh, very good. Let me give you
and if there's some very things that we come to together.
Yes, yes.